It wasn't a little girl. I was camping with my husband and his family at a small remote lake in New Mexico. There were about 10 people in our group and another group of 6 people in the next campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were doing physical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, telling stories, when we all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling for help. Neither group had children with them, but we were all positive we were hearing a little girl and decided to search the area where we heard the noises together. There was a field behind our campsites, and we all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet from us in the field, making noises. We all agreed this thing looked maybe 6 feet tall, skinny, and white as can be. We made our way closer to investigate, but whatever it was started backing off as we got closer. It disappeared into the trees. All night we continued to hear a little girl just calling for help as we tried to sleep. Well, we didn't get any sleep. Bobby. One day in the fall of 19, I arrived at the 72nd Street subway on a cold and rainy dark night. Sitting outside the subway was a little boy, about 8 or 9, shivering in the rain, drenched, rocking back and forth. I approached him to ask how he was doing and to offer help. He could barely project his voice, but I was able to get his name, Bobby, and his need to get home. I offered Bobby my sweater, a favorite light blue, knit one my mother had given me for my birthday many years before. Slowly he stood up, now wearing my oversized sweater, and together we walked towards his home, a beautiful brownstone somewhere in the 80s, between West End and Riverside. When we approached his home, he told me he was okay, and I left him as he used his own key to get into the home. A few days later, unable to stop thinking about the boy and wanting to reassure myself that he was doing well, I returned to that block. I climbed the steps of the brownstone and buzzed the only buzzer available. A kind older lady answered the door. I asked her, "Have you seen a little boy named Bobby? I brought him back here a few nights ago in that rainstorm." Her face turned white. "My son Bobby's been dead for 20 years. She gave me a look of bewilderment, indicating the conversation was over and there would be no further discussion. But sure, as I was standing there, I knew the events of that day with Bobby were real. Later that night, having learned his last name at the buzzer of the building, I Googled Bobby, and sure enough, he had died decades prior under mysterious circumstances. The online obituary revealed that he had been buried at the 3rd Sheriff Israeli Cemetery in Chelsea. So the very next day, a rainy and dreary day, as the day I'd met Bobby, I took the train down to Chelsea to pay my respects. When I found his tombstone, my heart stopped. Sitting on top of his grave was my old knit blue sweater. The Unrest Stop. I was driving across country with my mom and sister when I was 16 and my sister was 20. It was late, but we were well rested, still on alert. We were driving along an interstate and needed gas and a bathroom break, so we stopped at the only rest stop in 200 miles. There was a van full of teenagers on a road trip at the gas station, as well as a small gray car parked at the pump in front of us with 2 young men standing still outside of it. When we got there, everything felt wrong. We'd been on the road for days and seen many rest stops at night and had never been afraid until then. My mom and sister went inside and I stayed in the car. I heard the teenagers say they were creeped out and couldn't get the pump to work, so they left in a hurry. I was watching the car in front of us, and the 2 men had not moved at all. Not an inch. They weren't talking. They weren't on phones. They were just standing there, still as stone. My sister and mom came running back out to the car. When they got in, these 2 men slowly turned to look at us, while not moving or pivoting the rest of their bodies. And I swear, we all saw the same thing. They had eyes dark as pitch and empty, truly empty. Not black, not reflecting any light at all, just a void. We sped out of there and didn't stop until we were in the next city. The worst thing about the entire experience, we couldn't find the place anywhere on a map. We knew exactly what spot in the interstate to look, and we couldn't find it on Google Maps or any paper map we had. We even asked the locals about the creepy gas station out on that stretch of road and got only confused looks. We've traveled on that interstate since, and there is no sign of that rest stop.